What's up guys, it's James here, and in today's video, I'm gonna be answering some of your guys' Airbnb investing most frequently asked questions. So hopefully this video will help to answer some questions you have. If you have other questions that you'd like me to address in another video like this in the future, then make sure you drop them in the comment section down below. Let me know what questions you have about investing in Airbnbs or short-term rental properties, and I will be sure to get them answered in the next Q&A video. Also, if you guys are interested in learning more about step-by-step exactly how to invest successfully in short-term rental properties, there's a link in the description down below for a free training that walks through exactly how to do that step by step. So I highly recommend you check that out as well. Again, link is in the description down below. So let's get started. I've got some written down on my computer in front of me here. So the first one is, should I take out a HELOC for investing? So I get asked this a lot. People say, okay, I've got a lot of equity built up in my home, and I am wondering whether I should take out a home equity line of credit for investing purposes. For anyone who's not familiar with a HELOC or home equity line of credit, it basically is, what it allows you to do is take, let's say that you have 50% equity in your home. So in other words, your home is maybe worth $500,000 and you only owe $250,000 on it. You're carrying a mortgage of $250,000, and so you've got 50% equity in your home. Well, generally speaking, you can pull out up to about 80% of the value of your home. And so if you don't want to get a refinance and remortgage your property and deal with the headache of all that, you can generally go and basically open up what's called a home equity line of credit, where you're using the equity that you have in your home as collateral against a loan, so that if in the event you ever did default on the loan, they would basically have your house as collateral to back that up. And so it basically just allows you quick and easy and relatively low interest access to capital, because that collateral is obviously very solid in the eyes of the bank. And so what you can then do is, let's say that you've got $250,000 worth of equity in that $500,000 home, and you maybe want to go to more like $100,000 in equity and basically pull out an additional $150,000 through a home equity line of credit. You can do that. You just basically go to the bank. Typically you go to the bank that you have your mortgage with, and then you can basically just start open up a home equity line of credit, and they'll give you a line of credit for, let's say, $150,000. And so that just allows you to then pull out some equity from your home that you then don't have tied up in that home, that's obviously not producing you a return. Now, you may be earning a return in your home's value by the value of the home increasing, but generally speaking, a home is more viewed as a liability than as an investment if it's your primary residence, because you're not generating cash flow from it. Any returns you are making are just from either the principal pay down on the mortgage or from the value of the home increasing, which can fluctuate depending on what the market's doing. And so, generally speaking, yes, I do recommend using a HELOC for investing purposes, so long as you're smart about it. It's obvious that anytime that you're using leverage to invest, you want to make sure that your returns are disproportionately, outsized, so that they can compensate for the cost of capital. So what I mean by that is, if you take your own money and you go and invest it, and it would otherwise have just been sitting in a bank account, well, then there's no cost of having that money other than the time and energy and whatnot that it took you to earn that money, right? Which obviously is something, but there's no actual cost, like monthly cash flow, that it costs you to have access to that money, because it's yours, it's your money. Whereas if you're getting any kind of a line of credit, a loan, if you're taking on debt to use that for investing, then there is going to be a cost of borrowing that money, of using it. So if you have a home equity line of credit at, let's say, a 4% interest rate, then you need to make sure that you're going to be bringing in more than 4% return on that money that once you go and reinvest it, because it's going to cost you 4%. If you don't have the home equity line of credit, that money is going to be sitting in equity, and it's not going to cost you anything to just have that money sitting there. But as soon as you open up that home equity line of credit, you're going to be paying interest on that, because it is ultimately a loan on the money that you have in equity. And so the way that works is, now you're going to have a cost associated with it for your interest charges, and so you just need to make sure that you're earning more than that. Now, is that tough to do with real estate and short-term rental investing? Absolutely not. If you're not making a 4% return on your money, that's pretty insane. Like, you're obviously doing something very, very, very wrong. There's not a lot you have to do to get better than a 4% rate of return on your money when you're investing in something more active like real estate. If you were talking about taking that money out and putting it into stocks, I would say maybe not a good call, because stocks don't cash flow really well unless they pay a great dividend. And generally, because it's such a passive form of investing, you're not going to earn that much better than a 4% rate of return on your money. You should do a bit better, but not nearly as well as you'll do in something more active like real estate investing, specifically short-term rental investing. So should you take out a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, for investing in short-term rentals? Yes, it is a really great way to access some of that capital that otherwise would not be being put to good use and wouldn't be earning you a return. Another question I get asked all the time is, can I get 10% down on a vacation home? So a lot of people are curious about how you're able to get 5%, 10% down on a short-term rental property. And the reality is that really depends on the lender that you're working with and the area that you're in. But in a lot of circumstances, a lot of situations, yes, you can get a 10% down loan, meaning that you're borrowing 90% of the value of the property and only putting 10% of the value down. So let's say that you have a $500,000 property again. You can acquire that property for only $50,000 out of your own pocket as a down payment. Obviously, there'll be additional costs for closing costs, home inspection, that sort of thing. But you can get it for 10% down in most cases if you're planning on using it as a vacation home. So you can't do this with 20 different properties, but a lot of time for a second home, you can get it for 10% down, and there's nothing that prohibits you from using that as a short-term rental then. So it can be a good strategy. Just really depends on the lender and the terms of the loan. But yes, you can get it if you know what to look for, what lenders to work with. And again, we can help you with all that if you want to check out the training that's linked in the description down below, where we talk about how to finance deals and everything like that. Is the market too high right now? I get this question a lot. People always ask me, like, is the market too hot? What do you think about the market right now? Should I invest right now? Should I be worried about investing? Should I wait until the market cools down? They phrase it 100 different ways, but they're asking the same question: is now the right time? And ultimately, I always answer the same thing to people. There's never a great time. There's always great opportunities. There's never going to be a time in all of history when you don't need to look at actual properties. You can just go and buy whatever property you want, and it's going to make you a return just because the timing is right. Similarly, there's never going to be a time in history or in the future where it's just going to be a terrible time and that no property is going to make sense to buy because it's just a bad time. There's great deals, not great time. Yes, sure, some time are better than others, but if you constantly think that way, you're constantly going to be sitting on the sidelines, and you're going to be kind of saddled by the fact that ultimately no one knows. Nobody knows when the best time is. Like, obviously, we look back and we look at 2008, and where everyone was freaking out and selling all their real estate, a lot of us look back and say, yeah, that was the best time to possibly get into real estate. But hindsight is 2020. It's a lot harder to know that. It's honestly near impossible to know when the best timing is. And so I always recommend to people that time in the market always beats timing the market, and that it's always better to find a great deal than it is to try to wait for the perfect time. And so when the market is really hot, like it is right now, especially in a lot of markets where vacation rentals are doing well, real estate values are increased. Now, as interest rates increase as well, we're going to see some of those values come down. Just because interest rates are going up and property values are going down, that doesn't mean it's a better time to invest. It just means that the landscape has changed a little bit. And so what it really comes down to, more than trying to figure out the best timing for your deal, is finding the best deals. Finding deals that specifically cash flow really well so that you don't have to worry so much about the equity, the long-term actual value of the property. Now, sure, I don't recommend buying a property that's way overinflated, that you're paying above market rate, and then you're never going to be able to sell it for as much. Obviously, you need to look at that stuff too. But if your concern is, hey, what if the market takes a dip and it takes several years to correct, then either you're looking at the wrong deals, meaning that they're not going to cash flow, and so you would potentially have to sell them when the market takes a dip. That's a bad deal. Don't buy that one. Or you're looking in too short term of perspective. You shouldn't be looking at this as a 1 or 2 year play. You should be looking at any kind of real estate investing you're doing as a multi-year play, unless you're planning on flipping it, which again is an inherently risky strategy for flipping properties, because if the market does take a dip while you're flipping, you're left holding the bag. So my recommendation, whenever people ask me, is the market too high? Is it the right time? I always tell them, go and find the right deals. If you can find a great deal, for example, one that cash flows really, really well, let's say it cash flows 25, 30, 40% cash on cash return, then it doesn't matter what the market does short term, right? We know from history that the long-term performance of the market is going to be great. We're going to be on the up and up, and things will rebound. Even after 2008, things still bounce back up. You can also invest in any area in the world. So there's virtually never going to be a time when it doesn't make sense to buy a short-term rental property. It's just that if you have a 30, 35, 40% cash on cash return that you're getting with it, you're never going to have to sell, right? If the market takes a dip and property values drop by 10% over the next couple of years, it doesn't really matter, right? You don't really care about the value of the property because it's cash flowing for you. And that's where you're getting your return. That's where you're getting your protection. And so you can weather whatever storm the market throws at you and sell once the property values come back up. But where people get into trouble is that they buy a property that doesn't cash flow well, the market then dips, and then they're left in a tough spot where they're actually left paying out of pocket to carry the property, pay for the mortgage, taxes, insurance, all that sort of stuff. And that's where it gets risky, because then if you can't afford to pay for it anymore, you then have to sell it. You sell it at a loss. That's where everything goes really terribly wrong. So that's my recommendation, is don't try to time the market. Try to find really good deals that give you a lot of good cash flow that'll protect your investment and minimize your risk. My last question here that I've got noted that a lot of people were asking was, how do I minimize risk? And I think I pretty well just covered that, is actually cash flow. Like, that's ultimately the number one way to hedge your risk, is to find deals with really great cash flow and always be looking at cash flow. Again, if you want the actual analysis spreadsheet that we use to analyze these deals and make sure that our downside is protected, then check out the link in the description down below. There's a free training. We're going to give you our analysis spreadsheet. Once you register and check out that free training, we're going to give you the analysis spreadsheet completely free as well. So make sure you check that out. That's always what we look at. So whenever I'm analyzing a deal, I'm always asking myself, how is this property going to do, right? What's the cash flow going to be? That's always the first thing I care about. I don't really care about appreciation on the property. I don't really care about equity. I care about cash flow. The other stuff is secondary, because if I don't have my cash flow taken care of, then my risk is substantially higher. It's not going to matter if the value of the property goes up over the next 10, 15 years if I can't hold on to it for the next 10, 15 years. So that's always my number one. The other thing I'm looking at is cash flow in the worst case scenario. So if everything goes terribly, horribly wrong and I'm in the worst case scenario, how's my cash flow going to look then, right? And that's where a lot of the time, long-term rentals and other investment assets, they fall really short. They do well in a good scenario, but not in a bad scenario. And so what I always look for is, if I'm going to be buying a thing, I don't want it to only meet my criteria if it's in the best case scenario or a good case scenario. I want to know, in the worst case scenario, how well is this thing going to do? And so I want to make sure it's going to cash flow positive every single season, no matter what's going on. I want it to be cash flowing positive even in a worst case scenario, because that means that even in a worst case scenario, I won't be forced to sell the property if the property value does dip and performance isn't doing well. So cash flow is the biggest protection. You can also look to have like a long-term rental backup plan or a mid-term rental backup plan. That works with some properties. And again, you're still just looking for the cash flow on it to see how you can make those numbers work. But yeah, as far as minimizing risk, it really just comes to knowing your numbers and analyzing both your best case, your moderate, and your worst case scenario, and really making sure that your cash flow is going to be solid in any scenario. So yeah, if you have any other questions for me, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to learn more about the step-by-step process for exactly how to invest successfully in short-term rental properties, check out the link in the description down below for that free training. If you want access to our spreadsheet that shows you exactly how to analyze deals and allows you to analyze them to make sure that your downside is protected, that you're getting good returns, and that everything you're doing makes sense, then check it out. Again, link in the description down below for that free training. Sign up for it, and we will send you that analysis spreadsheet completely free. If you liked this video, if you got value from it, please give it a thumbs up, hit that like button. It really helps me out. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know from checking my analytics that a lot of you people are watching these videos and you're not subscribing. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, because we post 2 videos every single week. I don't want you to miss any of them. I want you to get all the value that we put out here. That's why we make these videos. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. All that said, have a fantastic rest of your day. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.